Okay, last time I wondered why people wanted to see the strongest JoJo star, and now I know why. But now we're going to be going over all of the villains in JoJo to see who is the strongest villain or villains depending on how it all ends. Two things to remember. First, since this is a tier list, the placement on characters will not only circulate on power alone, but characters being able to beat other characters, meaning that someone in B tier has a reasonably strong chance of beating someone in C tier. Second, if I put a character ahead of another character, then that probably means that I see them as possibly being stronger. So that's pretty much easy to grasp. One thing that I did before we got into the actual list is that I ranked characters off of pure strength and no abilities, which is something I also want to do here because there's people that will come here just for strength alone. So here it is. I don't think that anyone would really be surprised, honestly. Unless you think that Dio is stronger than Dio Brando strength-wise, which he would be if he was actually 100% in having Jonathan's body, because at that point he would just be busted. Then there's the regular guys after this, but being regular in JoJo is still pretty strong for some reason. So, now that we're done with this, time to get onto the actual list. Something different that I did to compile this list is that I basically matched up each character through a chart, and I compiled it off of how many people on this list can beat whoever person, which I saw as a way more efficient way to go about this because it's based off of the numbers given. Let's begin this with D tier, which is Dio Brando. I was surprised after making the chart, trust me, but after matching Dio to everyone, there isn't a single person he could beat. This is Dio Brando from Phantom Blood, if you couldn't tell. That's why I'm saying Dio's full name instead of just Dio, because he ended up just giving himself that name in the future. But on the topic of fighting, Dio didn't have anything above any characters on this list. He can't match up against the likes of Cars, and he also can't match up to any of the stand users due to his inability to see stands. If you can't see any of the stands that are on this list, you're at a huge disadvantage with what abilities you have. Think about it like this. If they've been difficult to fight when you could see them, being unable to see them is just unfortunate. Dio loses to everyone here, and that's where he stands. Unironically, that's where he stands. Now going on into C tier, we have Kira and Cars. You may be thinking that I'm kind of crazy for this, but let's focus on what we have at hand. No pun intended. Kira above Cars, because I believe that Cars being unable to see or sense Killer Queen is pretty much the end of him, but I don't believe that's where people would be upset. Seeing that Killer Queen and Kira are below all of the other villains is probably the main gripe with this. Well, we had already seen all Kira has done when it came to fights with other stand users. When it came to Crazy Diamond or Harvest, Killer Queen had nothing to do against such attacks, and those abilities don't even match up to what these other stand users are capable of. Cars could have a field day with the people here, but when it comes to the stands, nah, that's a wrap. Now for B tier, or I just call it Poochie tier, I guess. I found Poochie being the one character where all the characters above him can beat him, but those below have no chance of doing so. Both Whitesnake and Sea Moon are amazing stands, but when going against the other stands, it's not a fair fight. Especially since the stands above him can just end him without him even trying. See, Whitesnake relies on getting near, and Sea Moon is only fatal when making contact. Now, if Sea Moon and Whitesnake were to make contact, then yes, that would be clean, but they won't. So there that goes. For Sea Moon in specific, I understand being able to have projectiles and generally everything around it be a weapon is a huge thing for it, but these items won't have much of a chance of doing anything to any of these other villains, especially since, you know, stopping time and other things like that. Going into A tier, this is where we start getting to the most busted abilities we have for stands. There's Dio and Diavolo, or Diavolo, or Diabolo, like either way, that's how they say it. Now, if you're looking at this, then you notice that I'm putting Dio ahead of Diavolo, which I do believe that's how it works. King Crimson is a great stand, but putting them against each other isn't as complicated as you think. Let's take Epitaph for example. How would King Crimson see time stop? Since he sees ahead for about 10 seconds, he would only see him being launched by Dio. That's because it's time stop. He can't see the future of Dio stopping time if time has been stopped. Though I also like my friend Medi's take on King Crimson versus time stop, and King Crimson seeing all the actions happening in time stop all at once. That's a possible way too, but there's no way you're matching up stopping time to what we call erasing time. You can't erase an action that didn't happen in real time. Abilities aside, King Crimson and the World have a strong gap between the two. King Crimson having an E in both range and durability is just unfortunate. And it makes sense because having an ability like that should be good enough at that point for you to not worry about those types of things. Giving an A for a stand and almost everything, that'd just be ridiculous. And combine that with the power of like a time ability would just be insane. JoJo under you to stand. Nearing the end and we're in S tier. The contenders are Made in Heaven, Valentine, and Ultimate Cars. Someone's probably going to notice the big thing here being not Made in Heaven or Valentine, but Ultimate Cars. Ultimate Cars getting up here wasn't an easy feat, but I guess it was in a sense. Here's the thing with stands, and I brought this up in my Cars vs. Dio video, you can check that out. Stands, while being invisible and intangible to people or other beings without stands, they still have certain things that can deduce their presence to certain beings. If you can sense air movement, you can sense both projectiles and attacks. The fight between the World and Star Platinum was enough to show how stands can be viewed for those that can't see them, and sensing air movement isn't something that everyone can do. Then there's those that can sense it and act faster than whatever is coming towards them. In that case, that's Ultimate Cars. So combining the ability to dodge stand punches and not being affected by stand durability since he can't hit stands to begin with, all he has to do is focus on what he has and what attributes he has to work with. So since Ultimate Cars cleans house against Dio, Brando, Kira, Diavolo, and Whitesnake, then his placement is just. Though I did have a problem with Ultimate Cars versus C Moon. If you have the fight in a regular setting, I'm leaning more on C Moon taking the fight. Ultimate Cars also gets destroyed by Made in Heaven and D4C, so it's possible to just have Ultimate Cars at the top of A instead of the bottom of S, but it's generally the same placement, just different tiering. Now for Valentine. I don't think I need to say too much for Valentine. You get a killing blow on him, switches to another Valentine, that Valentine knows what you do, and it continuously just keeps on going. Now, I believe that there's easy ways of killing Valentine using the previous stands we mentioned, but it's not things that those villains would do, so I'm not even going to bother with it. So that's why you have Valentine beating a lot of these other villains. He not only has a busted stand, he's also a lot smarter than those on his use of it, focusing on his strongest point. Now, for Made in Heaven. All of that it completely just goes out the window at that point. Made in Heaven blitzes everyone and makes fatal moves that I wanted other villains doing, but they don't. One move of the hand in your head is just completely gone. He makes a stand like D4C that could beat all of these other stands into nothing. Acceleration of time isn't even something that has to matter in the fight. Poochie with speed alone is enough for it. Before we finish this all off with the last tier, this is something I wanted for the Kira fans. While Killer Queen is down there, I'm going to give Sheer Heart Attack its own little odd tier, since Sheer Heart Attack beats as many villains as Made in Heaven, but also includes Made in Heaven. Then you just have to add in Sheer Heart Attack to its own tier, I guess S+? Let's give it that. Finishing this all on a non-Kira note, we're finishing this with double S tier. D4C Love Train. This is a stand with the ability to redirect all misfortune. Now the one problem I had with D4C is needing to leave to be able to attack. With that in mind, it gives Poochie a chance with Made in Heaven to act on Valentine trying to attack, but that's saying if Valentine would even try it. If you have a priest knocking on your dimensional walls of good luck, waiting to kill you and show you the ideals of heaven, you might want to just lock your lock your door. You don't even want to leave. That would also create a stalemate in the end of it. Along with that, Love Train can force a stalemate with anyone having the ability to blitz him when vulnerable, but not needing to do so with those he would already be with regular D4C. And that's pretty much going to be it. Now, there's two things I want to take away from this. Anyone can ask for what verses they want to see against this character or that character, and if there's enough support on whatever comment that is, I'll be going on to that. The second is that I realized there's a supporting character and minor antagonist things that we could make lists out of. It's possible that I could just do this in a tier list format, but I feel like certain things could be worked on just to rank them without needing a list. I use the tier list format only if things aren't really that black and white, but there's many shades of gray in the middle. there are some things where I can just rank them on some sort of scale and have it at that. For example, people ask me to rank the Joestars on levels of who is the best Joestar overall, meaning not strength, but on who is more written better than the other. So that's something to think about. So leave a comment on what you guys want to see next. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe to stay updated. And if you want to comment something about Dio over Heaven, let me tell you this, okay? If enough people, like, I've been getting multiple comments on this just before I end this video. I've been getting so many comments on Dio over Heaven. If people want to see me, I'm going to do a little thing like a stand showcase if people want to see it. And I'll be going over Dio over Heaven and all of that, my thoughts on him, yada yada, everything he's got. And I'll tell you why I don't even try to include him on this type of thing, because dude's busted. But that's going to be all for now. I'll see you guys in the next one. So until then, peace out and Godspeed.